Andrew Barras. I am a part of EMDT and I'm about ready to graduate. This is a report on my final project, which is an action research project called Classroom Pulse. Essentially, my action research project was to learn about whether or not laptops can be used to enhance the classroom environment. And to do this, we're going to create an environment that the students are more happy to learn in. It all goes back to a theory called brain-based learning. Brain-based learning is, do you think that a student will feel more comfortable if they are afraid every day because they're getting tested, they're worried if they're going to pass the class or not, and they're most concerned with what the teacher wants to hear, being able to repeat back to the teacher what they said and how they said it? Or do you think a student will learn more when they're relaxed, when they're comfortable, and when they feel like they're being invited to take chances and make mistakes and learn from them? I developed a tool called Classroom Pulse, which is a Web 2.0 tool. It's free, it's on the internet, and it allows teachers and students to interact with each other. And the software itself is just a web page, and so unless the school decides to actively block it, which I don't see why they would, anybody could use this tool. And the way it works is that the students are given essentially a little tiny control panel on their computers, and then the teacher also has a control panel on their projector on the screen, and the students have buttons where they can say whether or not they like something, whether or not they want the teacher to speed up or slow down, whether or not they're hot or cold, and all of these things will happen, and then they're tallied and shown on the teacher's screen, so everybody can see what the class is doing. And this is a positive feedback loop. When I first designed this project, I went and did a review of who's done things like this before. I had known that classroom response systems, or what are called clickers, have been around for quite a long time. And so I went and did some research on those. And I found that classroom response systems, or little remote controls used in the classroom, they are used almost exclusively for quantitative assessment. In other words, being able to pop up a multiple choice question and have the students answer it. And this is a way of figuring out how the students are understanding the concept as they go. But it doesn't talk at all about how they're enjoying the lecture, what the temperature is, or anything like that. It's never used for that, and the assessment is only given when the teacher says that they can do it. So if the teacher chooses not to use it, then it's really not very helpful. Other forms of research that I did was on brain-based learning itself, which there's been a number of different studies based on this, and it's kind of one of those things that people really aren't. It's just a theory, like everything else. We've come up with so many different theories, multiple intelligences and brain-based learning and constructivism and behavioralism, and there's half a dozen theories, there's dozens of theories really, trying to explain how we learn. And it's really just pick which one you like. But I do feel that there's something to be said for making the students more comfortable, making them more relaxed, and perhaps they can learn better. I think there's a lot of good things with that. It was important for the teacher to understand how to use things, how to use the technology. You can introduce all the technology you want into the classroom, but if the teacher doesn't adapt it into their teaching style, it doesn't do you any good at all. So as a result, during my first cycle, I realized this was going to be a problem. My second cycle, I ended up teaching myself because I was the one who knew how to use the technology effectively. So I got pretty good results. Part of my project was figuring out, how did the students let the teacher know with an ongoing assessment? Why assess them at the end of the month only? Or why do a survey on how the teacher did? Classes change. They're different from month to month. And so what you want to be able to do as a teacher is figure out that if your class needs you to go faster, then pick up the pace a little bit. If your class needs you to go slower, then slow down. And you really want to know this every 10 minutes or so. You want to be able to adapt. And what I was going for is I wanted them to feel like they had better control over what was happening in the classroom, that the teacher was listening to them and was responding to their needs. So what I realized I needed to do was basically create something like this. This is a remote control. All the students understand how to use something like this. Remote control, fast forward, stop, backup, and so on. A remote control type of system on the web for the teacher. Now this involves the teacher giving up a little bit of control, but I think the results themselves get the students more involved. And from the cycles that I did, I was pretty happy with the outcome. Cycle 1 and Cycle 2 took place earlier this year at Full Sail. Cycle 1 took place with students. Cycle 2 took place with teachers. What I mean by that is I teach in faculty development. So when I taught it myself, my class was actually a bunch of teachers. I got some very interesting feedback from them. Cycle 1 took place with a friend of mine, an instructor at Full Sail. And I told her about the software, I showed it to her, but I didn't really tell her how to use it. As it turns out, the entire lecture, she didn't really use it that much. And so therefore, and she really didn't incorporate the computers much into her lecture at all. So as a result, the problem was that the students didn't use the software. If the teacher's not using it, the students aren't going to either. I also realized during the course of this that my design was a little bit overly complicated and I needed to do some reworking. Some of the students were actually asking me what does what, which I kind of follow the Apple philosophy of design. You should just be able to sit down and use it. And since there was some question marks there, I had to change it. I went back and I redesigned things for Cycle 2. Cycle 2 turned out much, much better. This software was a lot easier to use. It was just a series of buttons at that point. And basically the teacher then got percentages of who's pushed what button, and it was very simple to use. I used it in class. I found that one of the things I didn't expect from this is that smaller classes tend to get less use out of this. When you're a teacher and you're teaching a class of, let's say, 8 or so people, it's good for certain things. Like you can tell the students to go out and do their own individual little work for 10 minutes and then just say, okay, we'll check your ready button when you're done, and then you can see when everybody's ready. That's good. However, you can get a better feel for how they're doing in class just by asking them. For very large classes, though, if you were teaching, say, in an auditorium or like 200 kids for physics or whatever, the software like this would be great because you'd be able to get a feel for how the overall class is doing, and you wouldn't have time to ask everybody. So I felt the software would be really, really good in large classroom settings. In terms of the results that I got, the results basically indicated that the students liked it, the teachers liked it, and the #1 response on the survey that I gave them after the cycles had been done is that they felt like they had more control over the lecture and over essentially the teacher. They were able to give feedback to the teacher, which really was what I was looking for, is this sense of being able to give feedback, of feeling like you're more in control over the way the lecture material is being presented. And that feeling of control is also accompanied by a feeling of comfort. You feel like you're not at the mercy of everything. And that was really what I was trying to address with this software. And so even though, in my mind, there are storm clouds coming for education, I think that the tool we've been given is fantastic. It's the best learning tool ever invented, laptop. And I think that eventually we'll figure out how to use it. Student-centered learning, challenge-based learning, action research. I think this whole, the teacher being the foundation of all knowledge in the classroom is essentially dead, and I think the students have figured it out before the teachers have. So hopefully I can make some contribution to this new environment that we find ourselves in. Overall, the project was a lot of fun. I learned an awful lot doing it, and I can say now that if I had to do it over again, I'd do it differently. I'd do it better. Wouldn't change a lot of stuff, but I would do it better. But that's the whole point of learning. If you get to the end of a class and you realize that you want to do it again, then it worked. And I think mine did.